feel about joining the MCU?
Joining the MCU has been a very long time dream of mine. I've been trying for years to get my foot in through this door. I've had to threaten to burn the studio to the ground just to get to this point. So it's been a dream come true.
Talk about your love of She-Hulk and why you've wanted to work with her for so long.
She-Hulk was always my favorite character from Marvel Comics, and it was really the John Byrne run that made me fall in love with her because I loved how irreverent she was. I love how funny she was. I love how lighthearted and fun. There was this levity to the comics that was like a breath of fresh air because traditionally superhero comics are, pretty dramatic, very action oriented and sometimes can get very heavy. It's a lot of serious men dealing with serious issues. And so it was just so fun and refreshing to see this, hilarious, like sassy 6'7" green woman who was saving the world, but also making quips, and not taking it too seriously because it also felt very real that somebody would deal with. It felt very human that somebody would deal with like trauma and a scary situation and, adrenaline with humor. And of course, there was the fourth wall breaking that I loved. And I love that she would argue with John Byrne. I love that she argued with Renee, the editor. I love that she made fun of, comic book tropes.
Marvel Studios is known for playing around with different genres. What genre is She-Hulk, and what can audiences expect from each episode of the series?
She-Hulk is a legal comedy, and people can expect just that. 30 minutes of fun, funny, law-related stories, but also really at its core, the show is a story about a young woman who is a working professional who is trying to deal with all the different aspects of a normal 30-something's life, working, relationships, friends, extended family. But on top of all that, she is also unwillingly now a superhero, and she has to deal with all the ramifications of what that means.
Who is Jennifer Walters, and how does she become She-Hulk?
Jennifer Walters is your average 30-something woman. She is a working professional with a career and great friends, a very frustrating family. And she has, but on top of all this, she gets, without asking for it, she gets Hulk powers from her cousin Bruce Banner because the two of them are in the very unique position of being in a family with two Hulks.
How does she initially feel about having superhuman powers?
When Jen Walters first gets her Hulk powers, she is not psyched. Just as I feel any woman in her position would probably not be psyched because she didn't ask for it. She didn't plan for it, and it's a complication in her life. And if she could return the powers, she absolutely would because this was not what she wanted.
Talk about the dynamic between Jen and Nikki and how Tatiana and Ginger brought that to life.
Mm-hmm. Jen and Nikki are ride or die best friends. They're not only work best friends because they work together, but they are outside of work, like in their personal lives, best friends as well. And they, like a lot of classic friendships, they kind of are opposites and they have very different energies that balance each other out. Like Jen is like very much a rule follower who, is a planner. And Nikki is just a complete freewheeling, free spirit who loves to do things on impulse and, follow whatever feels good and follow her gut instincts. And the two of them really balance each other out that way. Tatiana and Ginger were so good, had such wonderful chemistry. Like they instantly felt like best friends, and they are friends outside of the show now. But, when they first met, like instant chemistry, and they really both, understood innately like how important it was to portray this very, very real type of layered, realistic female friendship. And also they were so good at improvising with each other too, that I think that also kind of lended this vibe of like, oh, these are real friends just hanging out and we get to watch them.
Who is, hold on, which one is, sorry, my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God I can edit. Oh, who is Titania? And what is her relationship with She-Hulk?
Titania is a villain that is very specific to She-Hulk in the comics, and that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to use her, because there are so many villains in the comics that She-Hulk had to share with, other characters, and Titania was one of the few villains that was actually very unique to She-Hulk. On our show, she is, in our modern world, she is an influencer, which I feel like is something that a modern day villain would very easily want to harness because of the reach and also the control of narrative that you have when you are very media savvy. And just like in the comics, Titania is very, very fixated on She-Hulk for a lot of personal reasons. And she becomes kind of this bug that is constantly buzzing around She-Hulk and trying to take her down.
Give us a day in the life of a writer on She-Hulk. How were the episodes developed, and how did the humor evolve? How do the cast members bring it all to life?
A day in the life of a She-Hulk writer is a lot of fun and a lot of food, and then we try to fit in a little bit of work on top of that too. So our writers, we had a fantastic writing staff. We had such a fun writer's room where it really felt like cheating because we'd come in every day and just felt like we were getting paid to make each other laugh. We would mine the movies and the comics for characters and, storylines and inspiration that we wanted to use. But we also would mine each other's personal lives and personal experiences and stories to turn into content for the show. And then on top of all of that, there was the Room Ham, which is an entire leg of jamon serrano that we had in our writer's room. And my assistant, Yusong, and one of the writers, Zeb Wells, would take turns using this incredibly long knife to slice jamon serrano for everybody. And we would take ham breaks every single day in the afternoon. And that's really what kept us going. We went through 3 entire legs of jamon serrano.